Scenes from a Perfect World. Hey, Billy, how you feeling?
Fair to middling.
Fair to middling. What does that mean?
I'm not quite sure I'm using it right. I heard it from Grandpa.
I should have known. Here, let me take your temperature again.
What is it?
Still a little high. Can I get you anything?
No thanks. Well, maybe some ice cream?
Sure.
Cool deal.
Cool deal? I've never heard you say that before. Is that another grandpa expression?
Yep.
Knock, knock. How's the patient doing? Oh, hey, Dad.
Hey, Grandpa.
Hey, now stay over on that side of the room. You don't want to catch this. I know. So how's it going? Still a temperature? Just a bit of a fever. I'm going to get him some ice cream. Hey, I'll take a scoop of that. Okay, Dad. Strawberry. Okay, Dad. So, Billy, you doing all right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Not feeling so good, huh?
No.
Oh, now don't you worry. Your dad and I'll take good care of you. You're probably going to feel bad for a little while longer, but in a day or two, you'll be back on your feet.
I don't like being sick.
Well, of course you don't. Nobody does.
But this is the worst I've ever felt.
Well, sure. You've never really been sick before, but it happens to everybody every once in a great while.
Why do people get sick, Grandpa?
Oh, I don't know exactly. There are these little germs that travel around the world, and they can't live on their own, so they land on plants and animals and sometimes people, so they can have a place to live.
Have you ever been sick, Grandpa?
Sure. As a matter of fact, when I was your age, well, geez, I'd get a little cold or flu, seems like every couple of years.
Every couple of years? I'm 10 years old, and this is my first time ever.
Well, sure. Since I was a kid, we've learned how to not be sick so often, like in the olden days.
What made you sick in the olden days?
Same things that make us sick now. Like I said, there's these pesky germs, but there were lots of other reasons, too. We weren't very good about the basics, getting enough sleep or exercise, eating proper nutrition, that sort of thing.
Didn't parents take care of their kids like now?
Well, sure, they did their best. But back in those days, people were awfully busy working, and stress levels were a lot higher for everybody, kids and parents. And so people weren't quite as able to take care of themselves. Oh, and we'd eat food from the big companies.
Didn't people eat food from their own gardens and community gardens?
No. Well, some did, but most people no. We just ate what the big companies produced because, well, it was faster and more convenient. Oh, and that food was full of sugar and other toxins. Oh, it was a sorry state of affairs. A lot of people tried to make good choices or had their own gardens, but it wasn't easy. Most folks were too busy working to tend their own gardens.
Why did they have to work so hard?
Well, because of what they used to call the economy.
The economy?
The economy.
What's that?
Oh, that's just a word they made up that kind of meant, well, everything. It was how we all got what we needed. Food, health care, our houses, our clothes, and books. Well, just everything.
Well, what's wrong with that? Everybody needs those things.
Well, of course, but back when my parents were taking care of me, they also had to be part of the economy.
So how is that different from now?
Well, Billy, back when we had to pay for everything, I've told you all about money, right?
I guess I forget about that. Money. I guess I still don't quite get it. Man, that is so whack.
Well, yes, it was whack. I lived through it, and I still sometimes can't believe it was true.
So how did money make people sick? Did the germs travel around on the money?
Well, actually, that's very smart of you, Billy. As a matter of fact, germs did travel from person to person on money and on credit cards and on public touch screens. But that was only a tiny little part of how money made us sick.
So how did money make you sick?
Well, like I've told you before, we had to pay for everything back in those days, which meant we had to have money, which meant we had to work at jobs to get the money.
But everybody works doing different things. There's doctors and teachers and firefighters and people who build things and fix things, all sorts of stuff. What's wrong with that?
Well, nothing at all. There's nothing wrong with working hard, doing things that help people, but this was very different.
How is it different?
Well, now say, for example, you and your friends work in a restaurant that everyone enjoys.
Like Baco and his family.
Right, right. And say there's a bad flu germ going around, and the medical experts are telling us that in order to stop the spread of that germ, well, we shouldn't touch the same things, and we should all keep our distance from each other for a few weeks, just like I'm keeping my distance from you right now. Now, what do you suppose Baco and his family would do with their restaurant?
Well, that's easy. They just close it down for a few weeks until the germ is gone.
Well, right. But when I was a boy, there was all this pressure on the people who ran the restaurant to stay open because that's how they made their money. And all this pressure on the people who worked at the restaurant to keep working because that's how they made their money.
And without money, people couldn't get food and stuff.
That's right.
I don't see how one little restaurant could make a difference.
Well, Billy, now think about it. There were hundreds, thousands of restaurants in the city, all around the country facing the same problem. And it wasn't just restaurants, of course. It was every single place where people gathered. In schools and universities, in sports arenas, and in factories and offices. Well, just everywhere.
And all of these places couldn't just close up and let everybody go home for a few weeks?
Nope.
And that's why so many people got sick all the time?
Yes. And what made it even worse is that even more people carried the germs around and gave it to other people, mostly older people, who would get very, very sick and even die.
People would die?
Many people got a very serious flu every year. Thousands and thousands died. Dad! Oh, hey, Pat. You're scaring him. Here's your ice cream, Billy.
With chocolate sauce?
Yep.
Hot dog!
We've got hot dogs? No, Dad. Here's your ice cream. Strawberry? Yes, strawberry. With chocolate sauce? Yes, with chocolate sauce.
Yuck! Chocolate sauce on strawberry ice cream?
I like it that way.
Gross!
Billy, don't let your grandpa scare you with his stories. You've just got a tiny little flu bug. You're going to be fine.
Oh, geez Louise, Dad, I know.
Geez Louise. Dad, you and your old expressions are more contagious than the flu.
So, Grandpa, the people with the money never did the right thing and just let people go home and not spread the germs around?
Well, there was one special time just when I was your age. Oh, no, you're not going to tell him about the pandemic of 2020, are you? Well...
Pandemic? What's that?
Well, Billy, you see...
Dad! It's okay, Dad. I'm not scared. I'm not a little kid.
Okay. Well, Billy, when I was just your age, just 10 years old, there was a terrible kind of a flu called COVID-19, and it started to spread around the world.
What did you do?
Well, just like the regular flu I was telling you about, people didn't take it very seriously at first.
Didn't they know any better?
Well, we should have. All the scientists and the experts were warning us, but people didn't listen.
Why didn't they listen?
Oh, most people were too busy living their lives, and, well, they just didn't pay attention.
I know. They were too busy working, right? For money.
Well, right.
Cripes, Grandpa. It's always the same with you.
Well, because it's true. They did have to work for money. And not only that, when they weren't working, they were so tired and depressed from their work that they spent most of their free time just trying to feel better.
Well, that sounds good. So they were getting exercise and eating healthy so they'd feel better?
Not exactly. Well, when I say they tried to feel better, well, they do it by watching television or playing silly games on their screens or by going out to the bars or buying things to try to forget about their awful lives.
But those things just make you feel worse.
Well, in the long run, sure, but those things do make you feel better, in the moment anyway. You can't really blame them. They were just doing the best they could to cope.
So they just screwed around like that instead of really taking care of themselves?
Well, the lucky ones. A lot of people didn't have time to screw around, as you say. A lot of people had to work at 2 or 3 jobs just to pay for their basic needs. Food and a place to live for them and their kids.
Because of money, right?
Yes, Billy, because of money.
So what happened with
COVID-19? Well, in just a matter of a couple of weeks, it started to get so bad that now everybody knew about it, and they really started paying attention.
Well, that's good. What did they do?
Well, by the time everybody knew about it, it was too big to handle properly.
So people got sick?
Oh, yes. Many people got sick and even died from COVID-19. And what made it even worse, a lot of people still refused to take it seriously. They kept going out to public places and spreading the virus, even though they knew it was hurting people.
They knew, but they still went out?
Well, many folks ignored the problem because, well, they didn't believe it was a problem.
But how can that be? If all the scientists and experts and stuff were warning you, how could you not believe them?
Well, many people in those days believed just what they wanted to, and many of them based their beliefs on the political leaders they followed.
No, wait a minute, Grandpa. That can't be right. I think you must be mixed up. What do political guys have to do with any of this? You're not making any sense, Grandpa.
Well, now I know it sounds preposterous, but hear me out. In those days, back in 20, millions of people only believed what the president said, and they didn't believe anybody else.
One single person? Grandpa, stop it. You're just jerking my chain.
Jerking my chain. Where did he pick up that expression, Dad? Well, now, it's a perfectly good expression.
Tell me the truth, Grandpa.
I swear, Billy, it's the truth.
Who was the president?
Well, we don't like to say that word, Billy.
Oh, that guy. You've told me about him. The T word, right?
Yes, Billy, the T word.
So the T word didn't believe the scientists?
To tell you the truth, I don't know if it was that he didn't believe them, but he did ignore them for the longest time. He kept telling the country that everything was all right, that there was nothing to worry about.
Well, why in the world would he do that?
Well, because if the official number of reported cases was too high, he was afraid people wouldn't vote for him in the next election.
Was he that evil?
Well, to this day, we don't know if he was more evil or more stupid. He was pretty much 100% of both. When he finally figured out he couldn't fool us anymore, well, then he called it kind of a war against the virus and branded himself a war president, thinking that would get him reelected.
But what about all the doctors and nurses and scientists and stuff? That helped, right?
Oh, sure. Even back in those days, most people were good, caring people, and a lot of them chipped in.
So it was all right then?
Well, not exactly. You see, because the people in charge were more worried about the economy than anything else, there weren't enough tests to go around to see if people even had the virus. And there weren't enough hospitals and ventilators to go around. We didn't even have enough doctors and nurses to go around.
Not enough doctors and nurses? But there are doctors and nurses on every single block. They're all over the place. I see them every day right here in the neighborhood. We must have a couple of dozen at least right here in River West.
Well, that's right, Billy. We've got all the medical help we could ever need. More even. Right here in the neighborhood. But it wasn't always like that.
Why not?
Well, Billy.
Don't tell me. Money.
Well, that's right. You see, to even become a doctor in the first place would cost a great deal of money.
Well, why did it cost money to become a doctor?
Well, in those days, you had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to medical schools.
You had to pay? A school? You had to pay money to learn stuff?
That's right, Billy.
But that's crazy.
See, once we got rid of money and people were free to do whatever they wanted, well, naturally, millions of people became doctors and nurses and health professionals because, well, they wanted to help other people.
Why in the heck did it take so long? Hundreds and hundreds of years to get rid of money. Didn't people know how much better things would be without it?
No. As a matter of fact, almost everybody thought the exact opposite. They thought if people didn't have to work to get money, well, then they wouldn't work at all.
But everybody knows that when people can do whatever they want, most of them do really good things. Everybody works because it's just what we do for each other.
Well, right. And that's why we have so many doctors and nurses and teachers and artists and scientists and, well, anything that helps others. But in the money world, many, many people had to work at jobs that just made silly things that no one needed. Or they worked at jobs that literally didn't make anything at all. Jobs that just moved the pretend money around to different people.
That is so nuts.
See, these days, Billy, if some kind of emergency comes up, everyone is free to stop what they're doing and help. It wasn't always like that.
Didn't they care?
Well, sure they did. But even though in their hearts they'd rather be helping people, they really didn't have much of a choice. They had to provide for their families, food and a place to live. So they worked in jobs that didn't really help anybody at all.
So that's the economy you were talking about?
Well, that's right. That's exactly right. This big thing that everybody called the economy. Well, it really wasn't working for us at all. In fact, It was just the opposite. We were working for it.
But money wasn't even real. It was all just made up.
Well, yes, that's right.
I don't know how you guys ever made it out alive.
Well, a lot of us didn't.
What do you mean?
Dad, thousands of people died needlessly every single day because they didn't have proper nutrition or health care or a safe place to live.
Dad!
Well, he asked. Don't worry, Billy. Those days are all over now.
I know, Dad. Don't worry. I'm not a little kid anymore. What's the dang deal anyway?
What's the dang deal? I don't think that's what you wanted to say, Billy.
Didn't I use it right?
No, not exactly. I think what you wanted to say was chillax.
Oh, okay. Chillax, Dad.
Okay, Billy.
Did you know anybody who died, Grandpa?
Well, of course. One of them was my grandmother on my mother's side, your great-great-grandma Kate.
How did she die?
Well, she died of the COVID-19 I was telling you about because people didn't take it seriously enough and didn't take precautions or get tested. By the time she even knew she had it, well, people spread it around in bars and restaurants and whatnot.
I'm sorry, Grandpa. Gee, that must have been awful.
Well, thanks, Billy. Yes, it was very sad. I remember we'd go to visit her in the nursing home, but we had to stay outside and talk to her through a window because it was so contagious.
You're lucky you didn't get COVID, Grandpa.
Well, as a matter of fact, I did get it.
You did?
Yes, I did.
Really?
Yep. But you see, for most of us, the virus wasn't that serious. I just had a small fever and a little cough like you have now. But the virus was pretty dangerous for people who were already sick from something else, and especially for old folks like Grandma Kate in the nursing home. Nursing homes were especially dangerous.
What's a nursing home?
Those were places where older people would go and live together.
You mean older people like Grandpa?
Yes, Billy. When she died, my grandma was just about the same age I am now, as a matter of fact.
Why didn't old people live in their own houses or with their families like us and Grandpa?
Well, some older folks did have health workers that came in regularly so they could stay in their homes just like we have today, right, Dad? Oh, yes, that's right. But of course, it was very, very expensive in those days, and most people couldn't afford it. And even so, the home health workers themselves were paid very little money, so there was a shortage.
Money again?
Yep. And as for families stepping in, well, a lot of them just weren't able to take care of their older parents and grandparents because they didn't have a proper house for it, or they were too busy with their jobs.
Because of money.
Right. I think he's getting it, Dad. Darn right he's getting it. You see, nowadays, anybody who wants to be a health worker out of the goodness of their hearts, well, they just go to school and learn how to do it, and they go right out and help people. And because other folks don't have to go to a job that they don't want just to pay the bills, well, nowadays, they can stay home and take care of family members who might need help.
So, when you were a kid, old folks were just left alone to die?
Well, in many cases, I'm afraid so. And of course, it wasn't just old folks. I had an uncle who died very young of diabetes, I think it was, because he didn't have insurance and couldn't get the help he needed.
What's insurance?
Oh, that was a silly, complicated system they had in the old days so people could make money when others got sick.
Wait. When people got sick, other people made money?
Well, that's right.
Dad, I'm worried about Grandpa. I think he's losing it. Now he's just dreaming up stuff that could never, ever be true.
No, Billy. Grandpa's fine. I'm afraid it's all true.
So you're telling me that people made money from other people being sick?
That's right. That's right.
You guys, that is totally f***ed up.
Now that's the right expression right there.